The Draxian warfleet cut through space like predators circling wounded prey. Admiral Corvus watched the human outpost through his command screen, counting down the minutes until their shields would collapse. His 6 cruisers had been hammering Frontier Station 12 for 8 hours, and the pathetic defenders were finally breaking. "Sir, they're broadcasting again," his communications officer announced. Corvus sneered. "Let me hear their begging." Station Commander Walsh's voice crackled through. "This is your final warning. Withdraw now or face consequences." The entire bridge erupted in laughter. Consequences? These humans had barely discovered faster-than-light travel 20 years ago, and now they dared threaten the Draxian Empire. Corvus had been crushing rebellious species for 3 decades. This would be another easy victory for his record. "Tell them they have 1 hour to surrender," Corvus ordered. "After that, we crack their station open and take what we want from the debris." His weapons officer nodded, charging the main plasma batteries. The human station's shields flickered under another bombardment. They couldn't last much longer. Corvus settled back in his command throne, already composing his victory report. "Sir," his sensor operator's voice carried an edge of confusion, detecting a single vessel approaching from human territory. "1 ship." Corvus laughed harder. "They sent 1 ship. What is it? A cargo hauler coming to evacuate their people?" "Negative, sir." Reading it as a warship, but the operator paused. "Sir, it's small. Maybe 800 meters. Our cruisers are twice that size." Corvus pulled up the tactical display. The human vessel was indeed approaching, and its configuration was odd. It wasn't built like any ship he'd seen before. Too narrow, too angular, covered in strange protrusions that might be weapons or sensors. It looked more like a knife than a proper warship. "This is their relief force," Corvus announced to his crew. 1 tiny ship against 6 cruisers. Record everything. The Empire will enjoy watching us swat this insect. The human vessel dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of weapons range. For a moment, it simply hung in space, running lights reflecting off its dark hull. Then a message broadcast on all frequencies. "Draxian Fleet, this is Captain Rebecca Grant of the USS Black Star. You have 10 seconds to begin retreat procedures. This is your only warning." Corvus couldn't believe it. "They're threatening us. Weapons. Target that presumptuous little ship and show them the price of arrogance." His 3 forward cruisers rotated their plasma cannons toward the Black Star. Before they could fire, the human ship moved. It wasn't a normal acceleration. The vessel seemed to blur, repositioning 3,000 kilometers in a heartbeat. Corvus's sensors struggled to track it. "What was that?" he demanded. "Unknown propulsion system, sir. It's not standard drive technology. I don't care what it uses. Destroy it." His cruisers opened fire, sending streams of superheated plasma across space. The Black Star twisted through the barrage like a dancer, none of the shots connecting. Then it fired back. A single thunderous discharge erupted from the Black Star's bow. Corvus saw the projectile on his screen for just a fraction of a second before it struck his lead cruiser. The kinetic round punched through the front armor, through the entire length of the ship, and exploded out the rear. But it didn't stop there. The same projectile continued traveling, slamming into the second cruiser behind the first. Metal shrieked, and atmosphere vented as the round carved through that ship too. When it hit the third cruiser, the projectile finally detonated, releasing some kind of exotic energy that caused the vessel's power core to detonate. 3 cruisers, 1 shot, 7 seconds. Corvus stared at the tactical display in horror. 3 of his ships were dead or dying, their hulls torn open, their crews evacuating in escape pods. The remaining 3 cruisers, including his flagship, scrambled to respond. "All ships, evasive maneuvers, pattern Delta 7, Corvus shouted. "Return fire, full spread." The Draxian cruisers scattered, trying to make themselves harder targets. They launched everything they had at the Black Star. Missiles, plasma bolts, particle beams. The space between the fleets lit up like a star going nova. The Black Star's response was methodical and terrifying. Dozens of point defense lasers emerged from its hull, creating a web of intersecting fire. Every missile that came close exploded prematurely, Every energy beam dissipated against some kind of adaptive shielding. The human ship didn't even slow down. "It's not possible," Corvus whispered. "Nothing should have those kinds of defenses." His weapons officer looked up, face pale. "Sir, their hull composition is reading as some kind of metamaterial. It's absorbing our energy weapons and dispersing the heat. And those kinetic rounds they're using, they're wrapped in an exotic matter field. They pass through our shields like they're not even there. Then use the collision protocol. Ram them. Sir, they're too fast. We can't get close enough." The Black Star fired again. This time it targeted Corvus's leftmost cruiser. The round struck the engineering section, and the entire ship broke apart in a cascade of secondary explosions. "Another vessel gone. Retreat," Corvus ordered, his voice cracking. "All ships. Emergency jump. Now." His remaining 2 cruisers desperately spun up their faster-than-light drives. But the Black Star had anticipated this. It fired not at the ships themselves, but the space around them. The projectiles created some kind of gravitational distortion that prevented jump drives from forming stable wormholes. Corvus's second-in-command ship exploded under focused fire from the Black Star's secondary batteries. That left only his flagship. "Jump, jump now," he screamed at his helm. "Officer." The ship finally tore a hole in space and leaped away. As they emerged in deep space, thousands of light years from the battle, Corvus collapsed in his command throne, his entire expeditionary force destroyed by a single human ship in less than 10 minutes. Back at Frontier Station 12, Commander Walsh watched the Black Star settle into a protective orbit. Captain Grant's face appeared on his screen. "Station is secure." "Commander, how are your people?" Walsh laughed, relief flooding through him. "Better now that you're here. I didn't think one ship could make that much difference." Grant smiled, but there was something cold in her eyes. "Admiral Corvus will report to his superiors. He'll tell them about Black Star, and they won't believe him. They'll think he's exaggerating or covering for his failure, so they'll send more ships, a bigger fleet." "And then what?" Walsh asked. "Then we teach them the same lesson," Grant replied. "Keep teaching them until they understand that. Humanity doesn't surrender. We adapt, we innovate, and we win." The Black Star's engines flared as it prepared to depart. Walsh watched it go, understanding now what that single ship represented. It wasn't just a weapon. It was a message to the galaxy. Humanity had arrived, and the old rules no longer applied. Somewhere deep in Draxian territory, Admiral Corvus delivered his report to the High Command. They listened to his tale of impossible human technology and devastating defeat. When he finished, the Grand Admiral leaned forward. "You're telling me one small ship destroyed 5 cruisers and crippled your flagship?" "Yes, Grand Admiral." "Impossible. You must have encountered a trap, multiple vessels." "No, sir. One ship, the USS Black Star." The Grand Admiral dismissed him with a wave. After Corvus left, he turned to his staff. Clearly, the Admiral panicked and performed poorly. "Send the 3rd Battle Group to Sector 9. 18 ships should be more than sufficient to handle whatever the humans actually have." His officers nodded and began issuing orders. None of them could imagine that they were about to make the same mistake. None of them understood that the Black Star wasn't just a ship. It was the beginning of the end for their empire. The war for galactic dominance had begun, and humanity had fired the first shot. The asteroid field stretched for millions of kilometers in every direction, a graveyard of ancient planetary debris tumbling through the void. Admiral Thress studied the tactical map with growing frustration. His 18 warships had been hunting the human vessel called Black Star for 6 days, and they found nothing but shadows. "Report," he commanded. His sensor chief looked exhausted. "Multiple ghost contacts, sir. Our scanners keep detecting something, but when we investigate, there's nothing there. The asteroid field is creating too much interference." Thress slammed his fist against his command console. The High Command had sent him here with explicit orders. Find the Black Star and destroy it. They'd given him 3 times the ships that Corvus had commanded, yet this single human vessel was making fools of them all. "The humans are here somewhere," Thress said. "They have to resupply eventually. We maintain the search grid." Lieutenant Amy Foster sat at the helm of the Black Star, her neural interface feeding her information faster than normal human reflexes could process. The ship hung in the shadow of a massive asteroid, its systems running cold to avoid detection. She could feel the Draxian vessels moving through the field, their sensor sweeps passing within kilometers of their position. "They're getting closer," she reported to Captain Grant. Grant studied her own displays, watching the enemy fleet spread out in their search pattern. "They're overconfident. Look at their formation. Those 3 ships on the western edge are isolated from the main group." Commander Owen Brooks checked his weapon status. "We could take them. Fast strike, then fade back into the asteroids before reinforcements arrive." "Do it," Grant ordered, "but we make this count. I want them scared." Foster's hands moved across her controls, her thoughts flowing directly into Black Star's navigation computer through the neural link. The ship came alive, its engines firing incomplete. Silence. In space, no one could hear them coming. The 3 isolated Draxian cruisers were scanning a cluster of small asteroids when Black Star emerged from behind a planetoid the size of a small moon. The range was point-blank. Brooks didn't hesitate. The main railgun spoke once, its exotic matter round punching through the first cruiser's engineering section. The ship split apart, debris spinning away in all directions. Black Star's secondary batteries opened up on the second cruiser, laser fire, cutting through armor like it was paper. The third cruiser managed to activate its shields and return fire. Foster was already moving. She spun Black Star around a nearby asteroid, using the rock as cover while the Draxian plasma bolts splashed harmlessly against stone. Then she brought them up and over, giving Brooks a perfect firing angle. The railgun fired again. The round tore through the third cruiser's command section. Without leadership, the ship went dark, drifting helplessly. "Jump to position Gamma 7, Grant ordered. Foster engaged the short-range jump drive, and Black Star vanished in a flash of bent space. They reappeared 30,000 kilometers away, hidden in a different section of the field. The entire attack had lasted 90 seconds. On his flagship, Thress watched 3 more indicators go red on his tactical display. "What happened?" "Report." "The human ship, sir. It appeared, destroyed 3 cruisers, and vanished. We're trying to track it, but our sensors can't penetrate the asteroid field." Thress felt cold fear creeping into his thoughts. "All ships, close formation. They can't fight all of us at once." But Grant had no intention of fighting them all at once. She waited 2 hours, letting the Draxians group together, letting them feel safe. Then she struck again. This time Black Star emerged on the far side of the field, targeting 2 cruisers that had separated slightly from the pack. Foster brought them in fast. Brooks fired with mechanical precision, and they were gone before the Draxians could react. 2 more ships destroyed. Thress ordered his fleet to pursue, but by the time they reached the attack site, there was nothing but wreckage. The Black Star had disappeared into the asteroids again. "How are they doing this?" Thress demanded. "Our sensors should detect them." His science officer pulled up a technical analysis. "Sir, I think they have quantum entanglement sensors. They can see through the interference that blinds our equipment. They know exactly where we are, but we can't track them. Then we force them out." Thress decided. "Weapons free. Start destroying asteroids. Eliminate their hiding places." His remaining 13 cruisers began firing into the asteroid field, shattering rocks with plasma cannons. Debris exploded in all directions, creating even more interference. It was exactly what Grant had hoped they'd do. "They're panicking," Brooks observed. "Look at their formation. It's falling apart." Grant nodded. "They're so focused on the asteroids they're forgetting to watch each other." "Amy, take us to position Delta 3. Owen, prepare the compression mines." Foster guided Black Star through the chaos, weaving between exploding rocks and plasma fire. The Draxians never saw them. When they were in position, Brooks launched a spread of compression mines into the heart of the Draxian formation. The mines activated, creating localized gravity wells that pulled nearby ships together. 2 Draxian cruisers collided, their hulls crumpling. A third was pulled into a large asteroid it had just cracked open, the debris tearing through its shields. Black Star fired into the confusion. Brooks targeted power cores and command sections, each shot calculated for maximum damage. 3 more ships went dark. The Draxian formation was in complete disarray. "All ships, retreat," Thress finally ordered, his voice barely controlled. "Regroup at rally point 7. But Grant wasn't finished. As the Draxian ships tried to flee, Black Star hunted them. Foster's neural interface allowed her to predict their movements before they made them. Brooks's weapons found every vulnerability. One by one, the retreating ships died. Only 5 Draxian cruisers made it to the rally point, including Thress's flagship. The Admiral stared at his tactical display in disbelief. He'd lost 13 ships, over 3,000 crew members, and he'd never even got a clean shot at the human vessel. "Send a message to High Command," he said. Quietly, tell them everything." His communications officer hesitated. "Sir, what do we tell them?" "The truth, that we were outclassed, that the humans have technology we don't understand, that this Black Star is unlike anything we've ever faced." Thress looked at his remaining ships. "And tell them to send everything, because if they want to stop these humans, they're going to need an armada." Inside the Black Star, the crew was celebrating. They just defeated a force more than 3 times their size without taking a single casualty. But Captain Grant wasn't celebrating. She was studying the intelligence data her crew had extracted from the destroyed Draxian ships. "Owen, Amy, come look at this," she said. The 2 officers joined her at the command console. Grant pulled up a star chart marked with Draxian military installations. "This is their supply network," she explained. "And here at the center is the Talvos shipyards. Every ship they build comes from this facility. Every weapon, every piece of technology." Brooks understood immediately. "If we take out Talvos, we cripple their entire war machine. It's deep in their territory," Foster added, her neural interface calculating the route. "We'd have to cross through a dozen occupied systems. No support, no reinforcements." Grant smiled. "We've been fighting them on the frontier, embarrassing them. Now we take the fight to their heart. We show them that nowhere is safe." Brooks checked his weapons inventory. "We're going to need more ammunition, and we should upgrade the point defense systems. If we're going deep into enemy space, we'll face everything they have." "Make it happen," Grant ordered. "We resupply at Outpost Meridian, then we jump straight for Talvos. No stops, no delays." Foster plotted the course, her mind racing through the calculations. It was suicide, a single ship penetrating that deep into Draxian territory. But she'd learned something in the past few days. The Black Star wasn't just a ship. It was a symbol, and sometimes symbols were more powerful than entire fleets. "Course plotted, Captain," Foster reported. Grant looked at her crew. "This is going to be dangerous. More dangerous than anything we've faced. The High Command will say we're crazy. They might even order us to stand down. Then we don't tell them until we're already gone," Brooks said. The rest of the bridge crew nodded agreement. They'd seen what Black Star could do. They'd witnessed how fear could be as effective as firepower. And they understood that wars weren't won by playing it safe. "Helm, set course for Outpost Meridian," Grant ordered. "Maximum speed. We've got an empire to terrify." As Black Star left the asteroid field behind, Admiral Thress watched it go on his long-range sensors. He knew he should pursue, should at least try to track them. But he was done. His fleet was broken, his confidence shattered. The humans had proven something today. They'd proven that size and numbers didn't guarantee victory, that innovation trumped tradition, that one well-designed ship with a brilliant crew could defeat overwhelming odds. The galaxy was about to learn a hard lesson, and the Draxian Empire would pay the price for their arrogance. Silent running through enemy space felt like holding your breath underwater. Lieutenant Amy Foster kept her neural interface tuned to the passive sensors, watching for any sign they'd been detected. The Black Star drifted through the void between stars, its engines cold, its hull reflecting nothing. They'd been behind enemy lines for 3 days now, and every hour brought them deeper into Draxian territory. Captain Rebecca Grant stood near the navigation console, studying the route they'd plotted. 2 more jumps would bring them to the Talvos system. 2 more chances to be discovered. "Contact," Foster whispered. "Draxian supply convoy, bearing 270, 12 cargo haulers with 4 escort frigates." Commander Owen Brooks pulled up the tactical data. "They're heading for the fortress at Kelver Station, probably carrying weapons and ammunition." Grant considered their options. They could slip past undetected, maintain their cover. Or they could strike, sending another message to the Draxians that nowhere was safe. But attacking would reveal their presence this deep in enemy space. Captain, Brooks said quietly, if we let them pass, those supplies reach the fortress. That fortress guard one of the approaches to Talvos. We might have to fight through it anyway. Foster checked the convoy's trajectory. We could hit them and be back in hiding before reinforcements arrive. Quick strike, then we ghost again. Grant made her decision. Amy, plot an intercept. Owen, weapons free. But target the escorts first. Let one cargo ship survive to carry the story back. Ma'am, Brooks questioned. Fear is a weapon too, Grant explained. We want the Draxians looking over their shoulders, jumping at shadows. Every convoy that gets hit, every patrol that doesn't report back, that's psychological damage. By the time we reach Talvos, they'll be terrified. Black Star came alive. Foster engaged the short-range drive, and they materialized 2,000 kilometers from the convoy. Draxian escorts barely had time to register the contact before Brooks opened fire. The first escort frigate exploded under railgun fire. The second managed to raise shields before laser batteries carved through its hull. The third tried to run, but Foster was faster, positioning Black Star to cut off its escape. Brooks destroyed it with a single precision shot. The fourth escort did something unexpected. It rammed one of its own cargo ships, using it as a shield while it charged its weapons. The cargo ship exploded, but the escort survived long enough to fire back. Plasma bolts struck Black Star's forward shields. Alarms blared as the energy dissipated across the metamaterial armor. Foster twisted the ship, presenting a fresh shield section. Brooks returned fire, and the last escort died in a ball of expanding gas. The remaining cargo ships scattered, their unarmed hulls desperately trying to reach jump distance. Grant watched them flee. Let them go, she ordered, except the largest one. Disable it. Brooks targeted the lead hauler's engines. A precise laser burst crippled its drive. The ship went dark, drifting. The other haulers jumped away, carrying news of the attack. Foster, bring us alongside that cargo ship, Grant said. Brooks, scan it. I want to know what they're carrying. Black Star's sensors penetrated the hauler's hull. Brooks read the results with growing interest. Captain, this is bigger than we thought. They're not just carrying ammunition. They've got compressed fuel cells, rare metals, and, ma'am, they've got technical schematics. Looks like design specification for a new class of warship. Grant smiled. Retrieve everything. Amy, prepare to plant a beacon on that ship. When the Draxians come to recover it, I want them to find our message. Foster programmed the beacon while the intelligence team downloaded the cargo ship's data. When they were finished, Grant recorded a brief transmission. To the Draxian High Command, your supply lines are cut. Your secrets are compromised. And your empire ends at Talvos. Captain Rebecca Grant, USS Black Star. They left the disabled cargo ship behind, its beacon broadcasting Grant's message on repeat. Black Star vanished back into the darkness between stars. For the next 30 hours, they moved through Draxian space like a ghost. Foster's neural interface kept them one step ahead of patrol routes. When they detected enemy ships, they simply waited, silent and invisible, until the threats passed. But close. Calls were inevitable. At one jump point, they emerged barely 500 kilometers from a Draxian destroyer. Foster's reflexes saved them, spinning Black Star behind a nearby moon before the destroyer's sensors could get a clear reading. That was too close, Brooks muttered. Grant agreed. The deeper we go, the more traffic we encounter. We need to be smarter. Amy, plot a course through the outer edges of systems. I'd rather add time to our journey than risk another near miss. Foster recalculated their route, taking them through less traveled regions. It added 6 hours to their trip, but the crew agreed it was worth it. During a brief rest period, Grant found Brooks in the weapons bay, running maintenance on the railgun. The commander had been pushing himself hard, sleeping only a few hours at a time. You should rest, Grant said. Brooks didn't look up from his work. I will. Just want to make sure everything's perfect. We only get one shot at this, Captain. What's really bothering you, Owen? He finally met her eyes. My family. They were on the colony at New Terra when the Draxians hit it. First contact. The Draxians didn't even try to communicate. They just burned the settlement from orbit. 3,000 people. My wife, my daughter. Grant put a hand on his shoulder. I'm sorry. I didn't know. That's why I transferred to the Black Star program. Brooks continued. Earth Command said they were building something new, something that could hit back. I needed to be part of it. Needed to make them pay. Is that what this mission is about for you? Revenge. Brooks considered the question. At first, yes, but now. Now it's about making sure no other families get destroyed. The Draxians think they can do whatever they want. Someone has to show them they're wrong. Then let's make this count, Grant said. Not just for revenge, but for everyone counting on us. They reached the edge of the Talvos system 18 hours later. Long-range sensors painted a picture of massive industrial activity. The shipyards were enormous, spanning thousands of kilometers, with dozens of vessels in various stages of construction. But something else caught Grant's attention. A ship unlike any other in the system, massive and ornate, docked at the primary station. Amy, magnify that vessel, she ordered. The image resolved, showing a dreadnought 3 times the size of any ship they'd encountered. Its hull was decorated with royal markings. Brooks checked. Their intelligence database. Captain, that's the Eternal Fong, the Emperor's personal flagship. What's it doing at Talvos? Grant felt a chill run down her spine. They planned to destroy the shipyards, cripple the Draxian war machine. But now they had an opportunity to do something far more impactful. They could kill the Empire's leader. Run the numbers, she ordered. Can we take that ship? Brooks worked his console, calculating weapons yields and armor penetration. Foster ran tactical simulations through her neural interface. After 5 minutes, they had their answer. Maybe, Brooks said, if we catch them by surprise, if our weapons perform perfectly, if they don't have time to raise full shields. Maybe those are a lot of ifs, Foster added. Grant stared at the tactical display. Destroying the shipyard would hurt the Draxians economically, but killing their emperor, that would shake their entire civilization. It might even end the war immediately, but it would also mean fighting every ship in the system. Over 40 warships protected Talvos. Even Black Star couldn't survive that kind of firepower. I need to think about this, Grant said. Amy, find us a hiding spot in the outer system, somewhere we can monitor without being detected. We need to understand what we're dealing with before we commit. Foster guided them to the shadow of a gas giant's moon. There they watched and waited. They monitored Draxian communications, learning about the Emperor's visit, was inspecting the shipyards, reviewing progress on the newest class of warships. More importantly, they learned about security protocols. The defense fleet ran regular patrols. Supply ships came and went on predictable schedules. And every 6 hours, the defense grid powered down for maintenance cycles. There's our window, Brooks said. If we time it right, we can strike during the maintenance cycle. The defense grid will be vulnerable, Grant nodded slowly, but we'd still have to deal with every warship in the system. Unless we don't fight them all at once, Foster suggested. What if we draw them out? Make them think we're attacking from one direction, then hit from another. Brooks expanded on the idea. We could use drones, program them to emit a false Black Star signature. The Draxians don't know what our sensor profile looks like. They'd chase the decoy while we make our real approach. Grant felt the plan coming together. It was audacious. It was dangerous. It was exactly the kind of operation that could either end the war or get them all killed. All right, she decided. We're doing this, but we're not just here to destroy shipyards anymore. We're going to broadcast a challenge directly to the Emperor. We're going to make him respond. And when every ship in this system comes after us, we're going to show them what happens when you underestimate humanity. The crew of the Black Star began their preparations. The Draxian Emperor Valdris stood in the observation deck of the Eternal Fong, watching construction crews assemble the newest battlecruiser. His empire stretched across 40 star systems, and this shipyard was its beating heart. Nothing could threaten him here, surrounded by 40 warships and the most advanced defense grid in the galaxy. Then the human transmission cut through every communication channel in the system. Emperor Valdris, this is Captain Rebecca Grant of the USS Black Star. I challenge you and your entire fleet. You have 10 minutes to prepare your defenses. Then I'm coming for you. Valdris stared at the communication console in disbelief. One human ship, broadcasting a challenge into the heart of his empire. The audacity was almost admirable. Almost. Fleet Admiral Crane, he said coldly. Destroy that vessel. I want the crew alive so I can personally execute them. Crane bowed. It will be done, Your Majesty. All ships, battle stations. Locate and eliminate the human ship. The defense fleet surged into action. 40 warships broke from their patrol patterns, converging on the last known position of the transmission. Their sensors swept the system, hunting for Black Star's signature. But Captain Grant had no intention of being where they expected. The transmission had come from a drone sheet positioned on the far side of the system. While the Draxian fleet raced toward the decoy, Black Star emerged from the gas giant's shadow, engines burning hot. Amy, get us to attack position Alpha, Grant ordered. Owen, ready all weapons. This is going to get messy. Lieutenant Foster's neural interface synced with the ship's drive, and Black Star accelerated to combat speed. They crossed half the system in minutes, approaching the shipyard from the industrial sector where cargo traffic was heaviest. The Draxian defense grid detected them when they were still 10,000 kilometers out. Automated defense platforms swiveled toward the approaching ship, charging weapons. But Grant had timed their approach perfectly. The grid was in its maintenance cycle, running at 30% power, firing. Brooks announced. Black Star's railgun spoke, its exotic matter rounds tearing through the weakened defense grid. 3 platforms exploded. Then 6 more. Brooks worked his console like a musician, each shot precise and devastating. Within 90 seconds, they'd carved a hole through the defensive perimeter. On the Eternal Fong, alarm screamed. Fleet. Admiral Crane realized too late that they'd been deceived. All ships, return at Talvos. The human vessel is at the shipyards. But repositioning 40 ships took time that Grant intended to exploit. Black Star dove into the shipyard complex, weaving between construction frames and half-built vessels. Foster's reflexes kept them ahead of incoming fire from the station's local defenses. Brooks targeted the skeletal hulls of unfinished warships, each railgun shot collapsing massive structures. Compression mines away, Brooks reported. A spread of mines deployed into the construction zone. They activated, creating localized gravity wells that pulled unfinished ships into each other. Metal screamed as hulls collided and crumpled. Millions of credits worth of construction collapsed into scrap. Emperor Valdris watched the destruction from his flagship. What are they doing? They can't possibly destroy the entire shipyard. They're not trying to, his tactical advisor replied. They're drawing our fleet to them. But why? The answer became clear when the first elements of the Draxian fleet arrived. The ships rushed toward Black Star, eager to avenge their damaged shipyard. But Grant had positioned herself perfectly. The Draxian vessels were forced to cluster together to navigate through the construction zone. Now, Grant ordered, activate the trap. Black Star had been silently deploying more compression mines during its rampage through the shipyards, dozens of them scattered throughout the construction zone. They all activated simultaneously. The Draxian fleet found itself caught in overlapping gravity wells. Ships that were trying to maneuver suddenly couldn't. Their faster-than-light drives couldn't form stable wormholes. They were trapped in a gravity cage of humanity's making. Brooks began the systematic slaughter. His railgun picked off ships one by one. The Draxians couldn't coordinate their fire, couldn't reposition for better shots. Foster kept Black Star moving, never staying still long enough to become an easy target. 5 ships down, Brooks counted, 7. Plasma bolts and particle beams filled space, but most of them missed or struck other Draxian vessels. The friendly fire was almost as devastating as Black Star's weapons. Grant watched the tactical display, timing each move. Admiral Crane finally understood what was happening. Disperse. All ships. Break formation and get clear of the gravity wells. But breaking free meant turning away from Black Star, presenting vulnerable engine sections. Grant took advantage. Owen, target their drives, cripple them. Brooks switched ammunition types, using high-explosive rounds designed to wreck propulsion systems. Draxian ships began going dark, their engines destroyed, drifting helplessly. The Eternal Fong, Emperor Valdris's massive flagship finally entered the battle. Its weapons were formidable, designed to crack planetary shields. When it fired, the space around Black Star lit up, with enough energy to vaporize a small moon. Foster's neural interface screamed warnings. She pushed Black Star into a maneuver that physics said shouldn't work, the ship spinning on 3 axes simultaneously. The Eternal Fong shot missed by meters, the heat scorching Black Star's hull. "Return fire," Grant commanded. "All weapons. I want that ship dead." Every weapon system on Black Star opened up. Railguns, lasers, missile pods. The barrage struck the Eternal Fong's shields like a hammer. For a moment, nothing happened. Then cracks appeared in the shield matrix. Then the shields collapsed entirely. Brooks targeted the Dreadnought's power core. The railgun's exotic matter round punched deep into the ship's engineering section. Secondary explosions rippled through the Eternal Fong's hull. Emergency systems activated, but it was too late. "Their core is destabilizing," Brooks reported. "They're going to lose main power in 90 seconds. On the bridge of the Eternal Fong, chaos reigned. "Evacuate the Emperor," Admiral Crane shouted. "Get him to an escape pod now." Valdris refused. "I will not run from one human ship." "Your Majesty, if you die, the Empire dies with you." Crane grabbed the Emperor's arm. "Please." Reluctantly, Valdris allowed himself to be dragged toward the escape pods. Behind them, the Eternal Fong's power core failed catastrophically. The massive dreadnought went dark. Emergency lights, the only illumination. Black Star circled the crippled flagship like a predator. Grant opened a communication channel. "Emperor Valdris, I know you're listening. Your flagship is dead. 23 of your warships are destroyed or disabled. Your shipyard is in ruins." She paused. "End this war. Withdraw from human space. Agree to peace talks, or I will hunt down every ship in your fleet." From an escape pod racing away from the dying Eternal Fong, Valdris heard the human captain's words. Around him, his empire was burning. His invincible fleet was broken. His personal flagship, the symbol of imperial power, drifted as lifeless metal. "Open a channel," he said quietly to the pod's communication system. Grant heard the Emperor's voice, defeated and bitter. "You have proven your point, human. The High Command will contact your government to arrange talks." "Good," Grant replied. "Tell them this. If any Draxian ship fires on a human target, the Black Star will consider the ceasefire broken. And next time, we won't be so merciful." Valdris ended the transmission. Around him, the survivors of his fleet retreated, leaving behind wreckage and shame. The war was over, at least for now. On the bridge of Black Star, the crew allowed themselves a moment of celebration. They'd done the impossible. One ship against an empire, and they'd won. But Lieutenant Harris, the intelligence officer, studied incoming data with a frown. "Captain, I'm picking up strange signals from outside the system. Encrypted traffic on Draxian." "Military frequencies, what kind of traffic?" Grant asked. Harris enhanced the signal. "It's construction data. They're building something in a hidden system. Something big." She pulled up the technical specifications she'd managed to decrypt. "Ma'am, they're building a weapon. Something designed specifically to counter Black Star's capabilities." Brooks looked at the data. "Project Nullifier. It's a massive station bristling with point defense to counter our railguns, energy weapons that can penetrate our armor. And, Captain, they have plans for interceptor craft, small, fast ships that can match our speed." Foster checked the location data. "The Omega Nebula. That's 3 days from here." Grant felt her momentary relief vanish. The war wasn't over. The Draxians were stalling, buying time to complete their superweapon. And when it was ready, they'd break the ceasefire and come for revenge. "How long until it's operational?" Grant asked. Harris ran calculations. "Based on the construction timelines, maybe a week, 2 at most." Grant looked at her exhausted crew. They'd just survived the impossible. Now she was about to ask them to do it again. "Amy, plot a course to the Omega Nebula," she ordered. "Owen, inventory our remaining ammunition." "We're not done yet." Brooks understood. "Earth Command is going to order us back for repairs." "Then we don't ask permission," Grant replied. "If that weapon becomes operational, it won't just threaten Black Star. It'll threaten every Human ship that enters this sector. We end this now, while we still have the advantage. The crew exchanged glances. What Grant was proposing was mutiny, disobeying direct orders, potentially sacrificing their careers. "I'm in," Brooks said. "Me too," Foster added. One by one, the rest of the bridge crew voiced their agreement. They'd come too far to stop now. As Black Star left the burning shipyards behind, Emperor Valdris watched from his rescue ship. The human vessel had humiliated him, destroyed his fleet, shattered his empire's reputation. But he still had one card to play. The nullifier station would be ready soon. And when it was, he would personally command the fleet that hunted down the Black Star. He would make these humans pay for every indignity. The Omega Nebula glowed like a bruise across space, purple and red gases swirling in stellar winds. Deep within its heart, hidden from casual observation, the Draxian Empire had built their answer to humanity's greatest weapon. Station Nullifier hung in the void, bristling with enough firepower to reduce a small fleet to atoms. Captain Rebecca Grant studied the long-range scans with growing concern. "That's not just a station. It's a fortress." Commander Owen Brooks highlighted weapon systems on the tactical display. 600-point defense turrets to counter our railgun rounds. Plasma cannons using a new frequency designed to penetrate our metamaterial armor. And look at this. They've deployed a new class of interceptor. Lieutenant Amy Foster examined the interceptor specifications. They're fast, really fast, small profile, high acceleration, probably designed to get inside our point defense envelope. "How many?" Grant asked. "Intelligence estimates at least 50, Brooks replied. "Maybe more. The nebula gases are interfering with detailed scans." Grant's communication console beeped. She already knew what it was. Earth Command, finally discovering where they'd gone. She let it ring twice before answering. Admiral Peterson's face appeared, red with anger. "Captain Grant, you are hereby ordered to return to Earth immediately. Your actions at Talvos, while successful, were unauthorized. Ignoring direct orders and engaging in combat operations without approval is grounds for court-martial. Respectfully, Admiral, we're about to engage a threat that could change the entire balance of power in this sector," Grant responded. "A threat that should be handled by a proper fleet, not one damaged ship with a crew on the edge of exhaustion." Peterson shot back. "You've done enough. Come home." Grant looked at her bridge crew. They were exhausted. Black Star had taken damage at Talvos that the repair teams hadn't fully fixed. They were low on ammunition. Everything Peterson said made tactical sense. "I can't do that, sir," Grant said quietly. Peterson's expression hardened. "That's insubordination, Captain." "Yes, sir, it is." Grant met his eyes. "But if we leave now, the Draxians finish that station. They deploy it, and every human ship that comes through this sector faces a weapon designed specifically to kill us. I won't let that happen." "Then you do it without Earth support," Peterson said. "And when this is over, assuming you survive, you'll face consequences." Peterson out. The screen went dark. Grant turned to her crew. "Anyone who wants to leave can take a shuttle back to human space. I won't hold it against you." No one moved. "All right then," Grant said. "Let's figure out how to kill a fortress." For the next 6 hours, they planned. Brooks analyzed the nullifier's defensive grid, looking for weaknesses. Foster ran hundreds of combat simulations through a neural interface. The ship's AI, Warden, calculated probability matrices, the singularity. Brooks finally said, "They're powering the whole station with a contained black hole. It gives them nearly unlimited energy, but it's also their biggest vulnerability. If we can destabilize the containment, the station tears itself apart." "How do we reach it?" Foster asked. "They've got 600 turrets designed to shoot down our railgun rounds." Grant studied the station's layout. "We don't approach directly. The nebula gases are thick. They'll interfere with sensors on both sides. We use that. Get close under sensor cover, then make a precision strike on the containment system. That means going through their interceptor screen," Brooks warned. "Then we go through their interceptor screen." Grant's voice was steel. "Amy, can you do it?" Foster's neural interface flickered as she ran the calculations. Her connection to Warden deepened, human intuition combining with machine precision. "Maybe, if I push the interface to its limits. If I ignore every safety protocol, it'll burn you out, Brooks said. The neural feedback alone could cause permanent damage. Foster smiled, but there was no humor in it. Then I better make it count. How long do I need to hold together? 10 minutes, Brooks estimated. Get us to the station, survive long enough for me to make the shot, then get us clear before it explodes. 10 minutes. Foster closed her eyes, feeling the weight of it. I could do 10 minutes. They approached the nebula slowly. Passive sensors only. The gases were so dense that even at 5,000 kilometers, Black Star was nearly invisible. But that meant the nullifier was invisible to them too. Contact, Foster whispered. Interceptors, 20 of them, patrol pattern. The small Draxian craft swept through the nebula, their sensors probing for intruders. They passed within 2 kilometers of Black Star. The crew held their breath. The interceptors moved on, detecting nothing. Forward, Grant ordered. Foster guided them deeper. The nebula pressed close, gas and dust scraping against the hull. Warden constantly adjusted their course, finding paths through the densest regions. Twice more they encountered patrols. Twice more they slipped past undetected. Then the nullifier emerged from the haze, and it was worse than they'd imagined. The station was massive, easily 10 times the size of Black Star. Weapon emplacements covered every surface. Interceptors swarmed around it like angry insects. Range to singularity containment, Grant asked. 8,000 meters, Brooks replied. I need us at 2,000 for a guaranteed hit. Foster looked at her captain. They'll see us long before that, I know. Grant activated the ship-wide communication. All hands, battle stations. This is going to be the hardest fight of our lives. The Draxians built this station to kill us. Today we prove that humanity doesn't break that easily. Captain Grant out. Amy, when you're ready. Foster's hands moved across her controls. Her neural interface blazed to life, connecting her to every system on the ship. She could feel the engines, the sensors, the weapons. She was Black Star, going loud in 3, 2, 1. Black Star's engines flared. They shot forward, accelerating to combat speed. Every sensor on the nullifier immediately locked onto them. Alarm screamed across the Draxian station. All weapons, open fire. The station commander's voice crackled across Draxian frequencies. Kill them. 600-point defense turrets opened up simultaneously. The space between Black Star and the nullifier became a wall of plasma fire. Brooks's own point defense lasers intercepted what they could, but there was too much incoming fire. Foster twisted Black Star through the barrage. Her neural interface worked overtime, predicting firing patterns. Finding gaps in the defensive fire, plasma bolts scorched the hull. Armor ablated away in glowing streams. The interceptors dove in. 50 small craft, each one fast and deadly. They swarmed Black Star, their weapons designed specifically to penetrate human shields. Foster spun the ship, presenting different shield faces to spread the damage. 5,000 meters, Brooks counted down. A plasma bolt punched through the weakened shields, striking the port side. Hull plating buckled. Atmosphere vented. Emergency bulkhead sealed, but they'd lost an entire section. 4,000 meters. Foster's neural interface was burning. She could feel it, the feedback cooking her synapses, but she held on. She had to hold on. The interceptors were everywhere, attacking from all angles. She destroyed 3 with close-range laser fire, but 5 more took their place. 3,000 meters. More hits. The starboard engine was failing. Power flickered. Emergency systems kicked in, but they were losing capability. Brooks was firing every weapon they had, trying to clear a path. 2,000 meters. I have the shot. Take it, Grant ordered. Brooks fired. The railgun round, loaded with their last exotic matter shell, tore through space. It punched through 3 interceptors that tried to block it. It struck the nullifier's armor, and it kept going. The round penetrated deep into the station, through corridors and bulkheads, until it reached the singularity containment chamber. When it hit the containment field, reality screamed. Containment breach. The nullifier's automated systems announced. Singularity destabilization in 60 seconds. All personnel evacuate. We need to go now, Foster gasped. Blood was running from her nose. Her neural interface was literally burning out. She pushed Black Star into a reverse burn that nearly tore the ship apart. The inertial dampeners couldn't compensate. The crew felt their bones creak under the G-forces, but they pulled away from the doomed station. The interceptors tried to follow, but then the nullifier exploded. It wasn't a normal explosion. The containment field collapsed completely, and the singularity consumed the station from within. Space-time twisted, matter compressed to impossible densities before being flung outward at relativistic speeds. The interceptors caught in the blast simply ceased to exist. Black Star rode the shockwave, its damaged hull screaming in protest. Foster held them together through sheer willpower. They finally cleared the blast radius. The ship was barely functioning. Damage report, Grant called out. The responses came back, each one worse than the last. Engines at 20%, shields down to 15%. Half their weapons systems offline. Life support functioning, but barely. And Foster collapsed at her station. Her neural interface had burned out completely. Brooks caught her as she fell. Medical team to the bridge. Grant ordered. She knelt beside Foster. Amy, stay with us. Foster's eyes fluttered open. Did we get it? We got it. Grant assured her. The station's gone. You did it. Good. Foster smiled weakly. Warden says I need surgery. Neural damage, but I'll be okay. Her eyes closed. Just need to sleep first. The medical team arrived and took Foster to the infirmary. Grant returned to her command chair. Black Star limped away from the Omega Nebula, leaving nothing but debris behind. Captain, we're receiving a transmission. The communications officer reported. It's from the Draxian flagship. They want to talk. Grant straightened. Put them through. Emperor Valdris appeared on screen. He looked older somehow, worn down. Captain Grant, you destroyed my station. I did. My fleet, my shipyards, my superweapon, all gone. Because of one ship, one crew. Valdris shook his head. I don't understand you humans. Why do you keep fighting? Why won't you just surrender? Grant met his eyes. Because surrender isn't in our nature. Because we protect what's ours. And because we proved something today, we prove that no matter how big you build your weapons, human will is stronger. Valdris was quiet for a long moment. The war is over, Captain Grant. Truly over. I'm ordering all Draxian forces to withdraw from human space. There will be real peace talks this time. No tricks, no delays. Why should I believe you? Because you've beaten us. The Emperor's voice carried defeat. Not just militarily. You've broken our spirit. My people are questioning everything they believed about our superiority. The High Command is fractured. Half of them want to sue for peace immediately. He paused. You win, Captain. Take your victory and go home. The transmission ended. Grant sat back in her chair, exhaustion finally hitting her. They'd done it. Against impossible odds through battles that should have killed them. They'd actually won. But as Black Star set course for human space, long-range sensors detected something troubling. The main Draxian armada, 200 ships, was mobilizing, not retreating, advancing, heading for the Draxian homeworld. The intelligence came through encrypted channels from an unlikely source, a Draxian admiral named Sereth, one of the faction pushing for peace. His message was brief but terrifying. Captain Grant, the military hardliners have staged a coup. They're marching the armada to Draxia Prime. They intend to force the Emperor to continue the war. If they succeed, this conflict will consume us all. Captain Rebecca Grant stood in Black Star's damaged bridge, reading the message for the third time. Around her, the crew worked frantically to restore systems. They were barely space-worthy, running on emergency power and prayers. Commander Owen Brooks approached. Captain, Earth Command is ordering us home. We've been out here for weeks. The ship is falling apart. Half our weapons are offline. Foster is still in surgery, I know. Grant pulled up the tactical display. The Draxian Armada, 200 warships, was already approaching their home world. But if those hardliners take control, everything we fought for means nothing. The war starts over, but worse this time, what can we do? Brooks gestured at the damage around them. We can barely jump. We have maybe 6 railgun rounds left. Our shields are held together with spare parts and hope. Grant looked at him. We do what we've always done. We show up. We make them see that continuing this war is futile. You want to take one damaged ship against 200 fresh warships. I want to stop a coup before it starts. Grant activated ship. Wide communications. All hands, this is the captain. I know you're exhausted. I know Black Star is barely holding together. I know every regulation says we should limp home and let someone else handle this. She paused. But there are Draxians on their homeworld right now who want peace, who are tired of war, who see humanity as potential allies instead of enemies. And there's a fleet of warships about to silence those voices forever. She took a breath. We're going to Draxia Prime. We're going to stop that fleet. Not because Earth Command ordered us to. Not because we'll be rewarded, but because it's the right thing to do. Because peace is worth fighting for one more time. The response came from every deck. The crew was with her, damaged, exhausted, but still willing to fight. Helm, Grant turned to the young officer filling in for Foster. Set course for Draxia Prime. Maximum speed our broken engines can manage. The jump to Draxia Prime took 18 hours. During that time, the engineering teams performed miracles. Chief Davis and his crew crawled through damaged sections, rerouting power, patching hull breaches, coaxing weapon systems back online. By the time they arrived, Black Star was functioning at maybe 40% capacity. It would have to be enough. They emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Draxian home system. The planet hung before them, blue and green, remarkably similar to Earth. And surrounding it, the Armada, 200 warships in tight formation, advancing on the planet. Grant opened all frequencies. This is Captain Rebecca Grant of the USS Black Star to the Draxian fleet. You will stand down immediately and withdraw from planetary orbit. The war is over. The response came from Fleet Admiral Vorthan, leader of the hardliner faction. Human, you are outnumbered 200 to 1. Your ship is damaged. You have no chance of victory. Leave now, and we will allow you to retreat with honor. I'm not leaving, Grant replied. And I'm not here to fight you. I'm here to give the Draxian people a choice. Will they follow leaders who drag them in an endless war, or will they choose peace? The Draxian people will do as they are told. Vorthan sneered. All ships, ignore the human vessel. Maintain course for the planet. But Grant wasn't done. She broadcast her next message directly to Draxia Prime, bypassing military channels. People of the Draxian Empire, my name is Captain Rebecca Grant. For weeks, I've fought your military. I've destroyed your ships, crippled your stations. Not because I wanted war, but because I wanted it to end. On the planet below, millions of Draxians watched. In city squares and private homes, the broadcast reached everywhere. Your emperor agreed to peace, Grant continued. But some in your military want to continue fighting. They're bringing an armada to force your government to keep this war going. I'm here to stop them, not with violence if I can help it, but by asking you, is this what you want? More war, more death, or do you want peace? The response was immediate. Across Draxia Prime, protests erupted. Civilians flooded the streets, demanding that the armada stand down. The hardliners had assumed they could control the narrative. Grant had just proven them wrong. Admiral Vorthan watched the planetary unrest with growing fury. All ships, target the human vessel. Fire at will. 200 warships turned their weapons on Black Star. For a moment, space was silent. Then hell erupted. The young helm officer dove Black Star into evasive maneuvers, trying desperately to match Foster's skill. Brooks fired their remaining railgun rounds, each shot taking down a warship. But it wasn't enough. They were drowning in enemy fire. Plasma bolts struck the failing shields. The ship shuddered under the impact. More hull breaches, more systems failing. They couldn't survive this. Then something unexpected happened. 3 Draxian warships broke formation. They positioned themselves between Black Star and the Armada, their shields protecting the human vessel. Admiral Saratha's voice came through. All ships loyal to the Emperor and to peace defend the Black Star. The human vessel is fighting for our future. More ships broke away from the Armada. 10, then 20, then 50. The Draxian fleet was tearing itself apart, half supporting the hardliners, half defending Black Star. On the planet, the protests grew. Millions of Draxians surrounded government buildings. They broadcast their own messages. We choose peace. In the war, in the medical bay, Lieutenant Foster woke to the sound of alarms. Her head was wrapped in bandages, and her neural interface was gone, but she could hear the ship groaning under fire. She forced herself to her feet. "Ma'am, you shouldn't be moving." A medical officer tried to stop her. "The bridge needs me." Foster pushed past him. She stumbled through corridors filled with smoke and emergency lighting. When she reached the bridge, Grant looked up in shock. "Amy, you should be in medical. I can help." Foster took her station. Without the neural interface, she couldn't connect to Warden, but she'd been piloting ships since she was 16. She didn't need technology to be brilliant. "All right," Grant nodded. "Get us through this." Foster's hands flew across the controls. Even without the direct connection, she understood Blackstar like she understood her own body. She wove through the crossfire, using the Draxian allies as cover when possible, dodging when necessary. Brooks made every shot count. They were down to 3 railgun rounds. He used them to take out the hardliners' command ships. Without coordination, the enemy fleet became easier to handle. The battle raged for hours. Ships on both sides were destroyed. The space around Draxia Prime became a graveyard. But slowly, the tide turned. More and more Draxian ships defected to the peace faction. The hardliners' numbers dwindled. Finally, with his fleet reduced to less than 30 ships, Admiral Vorthan saw the inevitable. All remaining vessels retreat. His voice was bitter. "We've lost." But Emperor Valdris had one more message. "Admiral Vorthan, you're under arrest for treason. Surrender your ship peacefully or be destroyed by your own people." Vorthan looked at his tactical display. He was surrounded by ships loyal to the Emperor. There was no escape. I surrender." The battle was over. Grant slumped in her command chair. Blackstar had taken catastrophic damage. They'd lost 3 crew members in the fighting. Dozens more were wounded. The ship itself would need months of repair, but they'd won. Emperor Valdris contacted them personally. "Captain Grant, you came to my homeworld, fought against overwhelming odds, not to conquer, but to protect peace." He paused. "I don't understand your species, but I respect you. The feeling is mutual, Your Majesty," Grant replied. "There will be formal peace talks, real ones this time, and I would like you to represent humanity. You've earned that right." Over the following weeks, the galaxy changed. The Draxian Empire restructured. They adopted a federation model, giving member worlds more autonomy. Democratic reforms began. Emperor Valdris remained as a figurehead, but real power shifted to elected councils. Humanity took its place in galactic politics, not as conquerors, but as partners. Trade agreements were signed. Technology was shared. The war that had threatened to consume both species became the foundation for lasting peace. Blackstar was towed back to Earth for extensive repairs. Admiral Peterson met Grant at the dock. "You disobeyed direct orders, Captain." "Yes, sir, I did." "You risked your ship and crew on unauthorized missions." "Yes, sir." "You started a diplomatic incident that could have escalated into full-scale war." "Yes, sir." Peterson smiled. "You also ended a war that could have killed billions, forged an alliance with a former enemy, and proved that one person, one ship, one crew can change the galaxy." He extended his hand. "Welcome home, Admiral Grant." Grant blinked. "Admiral, the promotion is effective immediately. Congratulations." Foster underwent surgery to repair her neural damage. The doctors said she'd never be able to use a military-grade interface again. She didn't care. She'd learned she didn't need it. Brooks accepted a position at the Naval Academy, training the next generation. He carried with him the lessons learned from Blackstar's campaign. That technology was important, but tactics and courage mattered more. The Blackstar itself was decommissioned after repairs were completed. They placed it in museum orbit above Earth, a monument to what determination could achieve. 5 years later, a young Draxian named Lissa stood before the Blackstar with her human instructor. She'd applied to Earth's Naval Academy, one of the first aliens accepted into the program. "How did one ship do all this?" she asked in accented English. Her instructor, Commander Owen Brooks, smiled. "It wasn't the ship. It was the people inside it." Captain Grant understood something important. That wars aren't won by who has the biggest guns. They're won by who has the strongest will, the best ideas, and the courage to see them through. Lissa touched the scarred hull. She could see the damage, the marks of battle. We remember this on Draxia Prime. How the human ship came to save us from ourselves. That's all we can ask for, Brooks said quietly. They stood in silence for a moment, human and Draxian, allies now where once they'd been enemies. The Black Star hung above them, silent guardian of the peace it had fought so hard to create. Somewhere in the galaxy, new conflicts were brewing. New challenges would arise. But because of one ship, one crew, one impossible mission, two species had learned that peace was possible, that understanding was worth more than any weapon. The USS Black Star's war was over, but its legacy would endure forever. Captain Rebecca Grant, now an admiral and humanity's chief diplomatic envoy, stood in the newly constructed Galactic Council chambers. Representatives from a dozen species gathered to discuss trade, technology, and cooperation. The Draxians sat not as enemies, but as partners. Grant looked at the assembled delegates and remembered the journey, the battles fought, the lives lost, the impossible odds overcome. She remembered Foster's courage, Brooks's determination, her crew's unwavering loyalty. Most of all, she remembered the lesson they'd taught the galaxy, that humanity didn't need to be the strongest to win, they just needed to be the most determined, the most innovative, the most willing to stand up for what was right. As the council session began, Grant smiled. The Black Star might be retired, but its spirit lived on, in every human ship that explored the stars, in every diplomat who chose words over weapons, in every person who believed that peace was worth fighting for. The battleship that became the Empire's worst nightmare had become something better, a symbol of hope. And that, Grant reflected, was the greatest victory of all. The transport ships burned as they fell from orbit. Admiral Richard Hayes watched through the viewport of his command vessel, the UNS Retribution, as debris rained down on what used to be the Frontier 7 colony. 47 million people had called that world home just 3 days ago. Now it was a graveyard of twisted metal and scorched earth. His hands gripped the railing until his knuckles turned white. "Sir, we're receiving the final casualty reports," Lieutenant James Wu said from his station. His voice carried the weight of someone who had stopped sleeping. Hayes didn't turn around. How many survivors? 12,000. Most were off-world on trading missions. 12,000 out of 47 million. The numbers didn't feel real. Hayes had served in United Nations Space Command for 32 years. He'd seen battles, accidents, and disasters. Nothing compared to this. This wasn't war. This was extermination. "Play the intercepted transmission again," Hayes ordered. The bridge fell silent as the holographic display activated. A reptilian face appeared, scales gleaming under harsh lights. Admiral Kreshtar, the Scarix fleet, spoke with cold precision. Phase 1 complete. Human settlement designated Frontier 7 has been neutralized. All defensive satellites destroyed. Ground bombardment achieved total coverage. Proceed with Phase 2 targeting protocols. Another voice responded. This one crystalline and musical despite its chilling words. Illumini. Commander, confirmed. Our weapons performed beyond expectations. Human shielding technology proved inadequate. The biologicals never detected our approach. A third voice joined, clicking and buzzing. Hivros, swarm units standing by. When do we move on Earth itself? Hayes had heard it a dozen times. Each playback felt like a knife twisting in his gut. These were species humanity had called allies for 15 years. They'd shared meals together, traded technology, signed treaties on neutral ground. His own daughter had studied Lumini crystal engineering at their academy on Prism Station. She'd been visiting Frontier 7 when the attack came. "Give me General Owen and Dr. Singh." Emergency Council meeting in 1 hour. Hayes finally turned away from the viewport. "And contact every human ship in the fleet. I don't care if they're hauling cargo or mapping asteroids. Everyone comes home." The command deck erupted into controlled chaos as officers began routing communications across 89 colonies spanning 34 star systems. Humanity had spread far in the century since achieving faster-than-light travel. They'd done it peacefully, always extending hands of friendship to the species they encountered. That was about to change. Hayes walked to his private quarters and accessed his personal terminal. He pulled up the treaty document from 15 years ago. There he was, younger and more optimistic, standing next to Ambassador David Cole as they shook hands with Dominion Alliance representatives. The Scarix had offered military cooperation. The Lumini had shared advanced energy systems. The Hivros had provided biological innovations that saved millions from disease. In return, humanity had given agricultural technology that doubled food production, medical advances that extended lifespans, and most critically, defensive shield designs that apparently the Dominion had studied carefully to find weaknesses. Computer, show me the timeline. Hayes commanded. Data scrolled across his screen. Over the past 6 months, Dominion ships have been requesting shore leave at human colonies with increasing frequency. Scarix merchants have been scanning population centers under the guise of trade surveys. Lumini engineers had asked detailed questions about planetary defense grids. Hivros medical teams had mapped the locations of every major human settlement. They'd been preparing, studying, planning genocide while smiling to human faces. The door chimed. Enter. General Patricia Owens stepped inside, still wearing her combat armor from the rapid deployment drill she'd been running. I came as soon as I got your message. How bad is it? Worse than bad. Pat, they didn't just hit Frontier 7. I got reports coming in of Dominion fleet movements near 6 other colonies. They're positioning for a coordinated strike. Owens' jaw tightened. She'd been advocating for stronger military readiness for years, but the Council had always voted for peaceful expansion instead. What are our orders? That depends on the Council meeting. But between you and me, I want every weapon we've ever designed ready to deploy. Hayes pulled up classified files, including the ones we mothballed because they were too dangerous. Richard, some of those projects were shut down for good reasons. The quantum disruption torpedoes, the AI swarm drones, the gravity well generators. We agreed they violated the spirit of interstellar cooperation. The spirit of cooperation died with 47 million people. Hayes's voice was ice. The Dominion wants to exterminate us. I intend to show them why that was a mistake. Dr. Robertson arrived next, his research coat stained with chemical burns for whatever experiment he'd abandoned to attend the meeting. I heard about Frontier 7. My God, Richard, what are we going to do? We're going to war. Hayes said simply, a real one. And I need every scientist in your department working on weaponizing any technology we have. Singh looked ill. I became a scientist to build, not destroy. So did I. But they made this choice, not us. Hayes activated the holographic display again, showing the intercepted Dominion communications. They're coming for Earth next, for Mars, for Europa Station, for every human world. We stop them now, or we go extinct. The 3 of them stood in silence, watching enemy fleet movements on the tactical display. Hundreds of Dominion ships were mobilizing across known space, the largest military operation any species had attempted in recorded history. How long until the Council convenes? Owen asked. 30 minutes. Hayes checked his chronometer. And I already know how I'm voting. Total war authorization. Singh said quietly. Total war. Hayes confirmed. We trusted them. We helped them. We called them friends. And they repaid us with mass murder. He looked at both of them. I want every human being in this galaxy to know what happened here. And I want every alien species to learn a new lesson about humanity. What lesson? Owen asked. That we're the most cooperative, generous, peaceful species you'll ever meet. Hayes's eyes were hard as steel. Until you betray us. Then we become something else entirely. The alert chimed. Time for the Council meeting. Time to decide humanity's future. Time to show the galaxy what happened when you underestimated the children of Earth. Admiral Richard Hayes walked toward the conference room, leaving behind the peaceful explorer he'd been. What emerged would be something the Dominion Alliance would learn to fear. Darkness was humanity's oldest ally, and tonight it would serve them again. Captain and Rodriguez floated in zero gravity, watching her tactical display through the reinforced canopy of the UNS Shadow. Her stealth reconnaissance ship was little more than a sensor array wrapped around an engine, designed to slip through space like a ghost. For 3 weeks, she and her crew had been deep in Dominion territory, and what they discovered made her blood run cold. Picking up another convoy, her sensor officer whispered, though there was no reason to stay quiet in the vacuum of space. Old habits died hard. Looks like troop transports, heading toward the border. Rodriguez marked it on her map. That made 43 military convoys in the past week alone. The Dominion wasn't just mobilizing. They were preparing for invasion on a scale that would make Frontier 7 look like a minor skirmish. Follow standard protocol. Mark their trajectory. Catalog their fleet composition. Then we ghost out. She adjusted the Shadow's position with microbursts from the attitude thrusters. How long until we reach the staging area? 2 hours at current speed. Her navigator, Corporal Lisa Park, checked her instruments. Should we send a warning back to command? Can't risk it. One transmission and they'll triangulate our position. Rodriguez had lost friends at Frontier 7. Her entire mindset had shifted in those 3 days. Before the massacre, she'd been a scientist exploring the cosmos. Now she was a soldier hunting in the dark. The Shadow drifted closer to the massive Dominion monitoring station designated Target Whisper. It hung in space like a mechanical spider, sensor arrays stretching in every direction. This station watched the approaches to human space, giving the Dominion early warning of any fleet movements. It had to die. I'm reading defensive platforms, 12 of them, automated targeting systems. Park fed the data to Rodriguez's display, and I count 40. Crew members inside. Life signs are mostly Scarix with a few Lumini technicians. Rodriguez felt the familiar weight of command decisions. 40 lives. Before the war, that number would have paralyzed her, but she'd seen the recordings from Frontier 7. She'd watched children running from orbital strikes. She'd heard the screams that followed. Prep the experimental charges. We're going in quiet. Her weapons officer, Lieutenant Thomas Grant, activated the payload they'd been carrying since. Leaving human space, Project Phantom had been developed years ago as a theoretical deterrent, weapons so effective that humanity had never deployed them, fearing they'd trigger an arms race. Those fears seemed quaint now. Charges armed, quantum disruption warheads configured for maximum EMP effect. Grant's hands moved across his console with practiced efficiency. Once we fire, we'll have maybe 30 seconds before every Dominion ship in the sector knows we're here. Then we make those 30 seconds count. Rodriguez aligned the Shadow with the station's main power core. Fire on my mark. 3, 2, 1 mark. The torpedoes launched silently, invisible to conventional sensors as they phased in and out of normal space. They struck the monitoring station simultaneously at 6 critical points. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the station's lights flickered and died. Emergency power kicked in, but it was already too late. The quantum disruption didn't just destroy electronics. It scrambled them at the molecular level, turning sophisticated computers into expensive scrap. Rodriguez watched as the station's crew scrambled for emergency protocols that no longer functioned. I'm detecting escape pods launching, Park reported. Looks like they're abandoning ship. Good. Rodriguez didn't want to kill them all. Just blind them. Let them go. Target the sensor arrays next. A second volley of torpedoes turned the station's eyes and ears into debris. Without its surveillance capabilities, this entire sector had just gone dark for the Dominion. They'd be flying blind for weeks until they could install replacements. Contact. Dominion patrol ships inbound. Grant's voice rose slightly. 2 destroyers, closing fast. Engage stealth systems and plot an escape vector through the asteroid field. Rodriguez's fingers danced across her controls. Park, I need a route that keeps us in the sensor shadow of those rocks. The Shadow's experimental hull coating activated, bending electromagnetic radiation around the ship like water around stone. On Dominion sensors, they'd appear as nothing more than a slight gravitational anomaly. Easy to miss if you weren't looking carefully. The patrol ships swept past their position, focused on the dying monitoring station. We're clear. Park exhaled slowly. That was too close. It's going to get closer. Rodriguez brought up the intelligence they'd gathered over 3 weeks of infiltration. Look at this. They've got detailed maps of 23 more human colonies, attack schedules, troop deployment plans. They're calling it Operation Final Solution. The bridge crew fell silent. The name alone told them everything about Dominion intentions. They're not just trying to win a war, Grant said quietly. They want us extinct. Rodriguez transmitted the encrypted data package back toward human space using a tight beam laser communication. It would take hours to reach the fleet, but General Owen needed to see this. The Dominion had shipyards producing warships at 3 times their previous rate. They had biological weapons specifically designed to target human DNA. They had propaganda broadcasts already prepared, explaining to the galaxy why humanity needed to be eliminated. They'd called humans disease spreaders and resource thieves. They'd manufactured evidence of human aggression. They'd spent years building a justification for genocide while smiling and signing trade agreements. New orders. Coming in, Park announced, Fleet Command wants us to continue reconnaissance of the Crescent Nebula shipyard complex. Rodriguez nodded. The Crescent Nebula was the heart of Dominion military production. Massive orbital factories churning out warships day and night. If humanity wanted to win this war, they'd need to cut off that supply line. Set course. Maximum stealth. She looked at her crew. I know we're all tired. I know we've been running dark for weeks. But the intel we're gathering is saving lives back home. Every Dominion ship we track, every weakness we find, that's one less advantage they have when the shooting really starts. When do you think that'll be? Grant asked. Rodriguez checked the timeline. General Owen is assembling the fleet now. Admiral Hayes authorized the use of Project Phantom weapons. Dr. Singh is converting civilian factories to military production. She pulled up a star chart showing human and Dominion positions. I give it 2 more weeks before we stop hiding and start hitting back. The shadow accelerated toward the Crescent Nebula, invisible against the stars. Back in human space, 700 warships were gathering for the largest military operation in human history. The United Nations Space Command had been designed for exploration and peaceful cooperation. Now it was transforming into something deadlier. Rodriguez thought about her sister who died at Frontier 7, about the millions of others who'd been murdered by species they'd trusted, about the children who'd never grow up because the Dominion had decided humanity was too dangerous to coexist with. She thought about revenge, and she smiled in the darkness. Fire consumed the void between stars. Commander Brian Foster had never imagined he'd be leading warships into battle. 6 months ago, he'd been hauling mining equipment between asteroid colonies, arguing with dockworkers about cargo rates, and complaining about fuel prices. Then the Dominion had vaporized his entire crew during a routine supply run to Frontier 7. Now he commanded the UNS Valiant, a destroyer bristling with weapons that hadn't existed in any military manual a year ago. All ships report ready. Lieutenant James will announce from the tactical station. We've got 43 vessels in our strike group. Dominion border fleet sits at 97 ships. The number should have been terrifying. Instead, Foster felt a cold calm settle over him. General Owen's strategy was simple. The Dominion expected humans to fight like civilized species, with organized formations and predictable tactics. They were about to learn that humans had spent millennia perfecting the art of chaos. Attention, all vessels. This is Commander Foster. He activated the fleet-wide channel. We're not here to win a clean battle. We're here to make them afraid. Break formation the moment we drop out of quantum space. Every ship picks their own targets. Keep moving, stay unpredictable. And remember, they murdered billions of us. Time to return the favor. The fleet jumped. Reality twisted as quantum drives tore holes in space. One moment they floated in empty void. The next they materialized. In the middle of the Obsidian Belt, a dense asteroid field marking the border between human and Dominion space. The Dominion fleet sat in perfect formation, confident in their numerical superiority. All ships engage at will. Foster grinned as his vessel dove toward the nearest cluster of asteroids. Let's teach them why you don't mess with Earth. The Valiant threaded between tumbling rocks the size of cities, using the dense field for cover. Behind him, 42 other human ships scattered, like a disturbed nest of hornets. The Dominion fleet tried to maintain formation, but formation meant nothing when your enemy refused to stand still. Firing quantum torpedoes, Wu launched a spread of the experimental weapons that had destroyed the monitoring station. They phased through the asteroid field, ignoring normal matter until they struck their targets. 3 Dominion destroyers exploded as their power cores overloaded. They're adapting, raising shields to quantum frequencies. Wu reported. Doesn't matter. Switch to kinetic impactors. Foster spun the Valiant in a maneuver that would have torn apart most ships. Human vessels were built light and fast. Dominion ships were built strong and slow. Different philosophies of engineering. Use the asteroids. Shoot them toward their fleet. The human ships began using the belt itself as ammunition. Tractor beams grabbed chunks of rock and flung them at Dominion vessels. Some impacts were deflected by shields. Others punched through, tearing holes open to vacuum. Sir, Dominion flagship is trying to organize a counterattack. Admiral Kreshtar is broadcasting commands to reform defensive lines. Foster checked his tactical display. The Dominion ships were trying to create a protective sphere formation, interlocking their shields for maximum defense. It was good strategy against conventional attacks. Target their flagship with everything we've got. Woo! Deploy the swarm drones. The Valiant's cargo bay opened, releasing 10,000 autonomous attack drones no larger than a human fist. They scattered through space like a school of mechanical fish, each one equipped with enough explosive to puncture a hull. The drones were too small for point defense systems to track effectively, too numerous to shoot down manually. They swarmed over the Dominion flagship like hungry insects. Explosions rippled across the massive vessel's hull. Shields flickered under the sustained assault. The flagship began listing to one side. As internal systems failed, Kreshtar is retreating, Wu announced. His ship just jumped to quantum space. Good. Foster wanted him to survive, wanted him to tell other Dominion commanders what had happened here. Fear was a weapon too. The battle raged for 4 hours. Human ships darted between asteroids, striking from unexpected angles before vanishing into the rocky maze. Dominion vessels tried to give chase but found themselves isolated and vulnerable. One by one, they were picked apart. Enemy fleet is breaking formation. They're retreating. Foster watched as the surviving Dominion ships fled. Casualty report. We lost 7 vessels. 12 more damaged but operational. Enemy losses. 41 ships destroyed, 23 disabled, 33 retreated. Wu looked up from his console. Sir, we just won against a force twice our size. The bridge crew erupted in cheers. Foster let them celebrate for exactly 10 seconds before raising his hand for silence. Good work, but we're not done. Dominion reinforcements will arrive within hours. We need to secure this belt and establish a defensive perimeter. He pulled up the strategic map. General Owen is sending supply ships with repair facilities. We're turning this asteroid field into a fortress. Over the next days, human forces transformed the Obsidian Belt. They hollowed out asteroids and converted them into weapons platforms. They seeded the field with mines that looked like ordinary rocks. They installed sensor networks that could detect approaching ships from light years away. When Dominion reinforcements finally arrived, they found a death trap waiting. The second battle of Obsidian Belt lasted 6 hours. The third lasted 3. By the fourth, Dominion commanders refused to enter the field at all. Humanity had claimed its first strategic victory. Foster stood in the observation deck of a converted asteroid base, watching supply ships arrive from Earth. The industrial might of humanity was mobilizing. Factories that had produced mining equipment now churned out warships. Civilian vessels were being retrofitted with weapons. Scientists who'd studied peaceful applications of technology now designed ever more creative ways to destroy. Commander, you have a message from Admiral Hayes. Wu handed him a datapad. Foster read the encrypted text. Operation Shattered Stars approved. Proceed to Phase 2. Target: Crescent Nebula Shipyard Complex. Reinforcements en route. Hayes sends his regards. Crescent Nebula, the heart of Dominion military production. 30% of their entire fleet was constructed in those orbital factories. If humanity could destroy them, they'd cripple the Dominion's ability to replace losses. It would be the largest battle in galactic history. Wu, gather the commanders. We've got planning to do. Foster looked at his reflection in the viewport. He barely recognized the man staring back. The merchant captain was gone. In his place stood something harder, sharper, more dangerous. The Dominion had wanted war. Humanity would give them more than they could handle. Behind him, 700 human warships prepared for the next offensive. The galaxy was about to witness what happened when Earth's children went to war, and the Dominion would learn to regret every life they'd taken. Radiation storms painted the nebula in colors no human had names for. Lieutenant Sarah Park gripped her bomber's controls as cosmic winds buffeted her small craft. Around her flew the Widowmakers, a squadron of volunteers who'd all lost family at Frontier 7. They had one mission: punch through the most heavily defended installation in known space and destroy the Crescent Nebula shipyard. Widow 3 to Widow lead. My sensors are going crazy in this soup. Her wingman's voice crackled through the interference. How are we supposed to find targets when I can barely see 50 meters? That's the point. If we can't see them, they can't see us. Park adjusted her approach vector, diving deeper into the nebula's radiation clouds. Stick close and trust your instruments. Human sensors are adapted for this. Theirs aren't. The battle had already begun outside the nebula. 700 human warships engaged, 1,200 Dominion defenders in the largest fleet action in history. Admiral Hayes commanded from the UNS Retribution, coordinating the three-dimensional battlefield that stretched across hundreds of thousands of kilometers. But the real target was inside the nebula, where massive orbital factories constructed Dominion warships around the clock. All bombers. This is General Owen. The main fleet is keeping them busy. You've got a clear run to the target. Make it count. Park pushed her bomber harder into the storm. The radiation would cook unshielded electronics. But human engineers had designed these craft specifically for nebula operations. Every system was hardened, redundant, over-engineered. The Dominion had never considered fighting inside a nebula. Why would they? It was tactically unsound, difficult, dangerous. Exactly the kind of place humans excelled. Contact. I'm reading the shipyard's outer defensive grid. Park's co-pilot, Officer Daniel Reed, highlighted targets on their shared display. 20 automated weapons platforms. Looks like they haven't detected us yet. Ghost protocol. All ships maintain stealth until we're inside the perimeter. Park led her squadron through a gap in the sensor coverage. The Dominion had positioned their defenses assuming attacks would come from clear space, not from within the nebula itself. Assumption was the mother of all tactical failures. The Widowmakers slipped past the outer defenses like shadows. The shipyard revealed itself gradually through the radiation haze, a sprawling complex of construction docks, each one large enough to build a battleship. Half-finished vessels hung in various stages of completion, attended by swarms of automated repair drones. Widow lead to all bombers. Fan out and pick your targets. I want simultaneous strikes on the main power distribution nodes. Park transmitted the targeting data. We get one shot at this before they wake up. Make every bomb count. Her bomber dove toward the central hub, a massive structure that fed energy to the entire complex. Reed armed their payload. Quantum charges designed by Dr. Singh's team. They'd tested them exactly once in a controlled environment. The results have been spectacular enough that production began immediately. 30 seconds to optimal release point. Park's mind wandered for a moment. She thought about her brother who'd been studying at the university on Frontier 7. He'd wanted to be a teacher. He'd sent her a message the day before the attack, excited about a new curriculum he was developing. She never got to reply. 10 seconds. 9-8. The shipyard's defense systems finally detected them. Alarms screamed across Dominion frequencies. Automated turrets swiveled, searching for targets in the radiation-soaked environment. 3, 2, 1, release. Park's bomber kicked as it shed its payload. 12 quantum charges fell toward the power hub, their casings designed to phase through shields. Around her, 32 other bombers released their ordnance simultaneously. All craft, break and evade. Park yanked her controls, sending the bomber into a violent spiral away from the target. Behind her, the charges reached their destinations. The universe folded. Quantum disruption didn't create explosions in the traditional sense. It created zones where physics stopped making sense. Matter converted to energy according to equations that violated conventional understanding. The power hub collapsed into itself. then expanded in a wave of raw force that consumed everything. Within a kilometer, chain reactions spread through the shipyard. Secondary explosions tore through docked vessels. Construction cranes toppled. Entire sections of the complex broke apart and tumbled into the nebula. Direct hit on primary target, confirming multiple secondary explosions. Reed shouted over the roar of alarms. Shipyard's main structure is breaking up. Outside the nebula, the main battle intensified. Admiral Hayes had committed the entire human fleet. The UNS Retribution exchanged fire with a Dominion battleship 3 times its size, shields flaring with each impact. Captain Rodriguez reports successful infiltration of Shipyard's command center. She's downloading their entire database. Wu updated Hayes from the tactical station. Looks like blueprints, production schedules, fleet deployments. Tell her to grab everything and get out. That facility won't last much longer. Hayes watched as human fighters swarmed through Dominion formations. Order all strike groups to press the attack. They're wavering. The Dominion fleet was indeed wavering. They'd expected to fight conventional battles with clear objectives and organized tactics. Instead, they faced an enemy that seemed to be everywhere and nowhere, that turned every environmental hazard into a weapon, that adapted faster than their commanders could compensate. Human ships used the nebula's radiation to mask their movements. They appeared from impossible angles. They coordinated attacks without any detectable communication, as if operating on shared instinct. The truth was simpler. Human commanders have been given broad strategic objectives and told to improvise. No rigid battle plans. No predictable patterns. Just organized chaos. Enemy flagship Divine Purpose is retreating, Wu announced. Correction, multiple Dominion vessels are breaking off. Hayes allowed himself a small smile. All units, pursue and destroy. No quarter, no mercy. The human fleet surged forward, quantum torpedoes. Across the void, swarm drones found their marks. Kinetic impactors punched through shields. One by one, Dominion ships fell. Inside the nebula, Park and her squadron regrouped. Widow lead to all craft. Status report. Widow 3 here. I'm hit but flying. Port engine is toast. Widow 7. Shields at 30% but weapons still hot. One by one her pilots checked in. They'd lost 4 bombers. For friends who'd volunteered knowing they might not return. But the shipyard was dying. 30% of the Dominion ship production capacity was collapsing into radioactive debris. All Widow units, form up and head for the rally point. Park took one last look at the destruction. Mission accomplished. Let's go home. The bomber fleet emerged from the nebula to find a human fleet victorious. Over 800 Dominion ships destroyed or disabled. The survivors fled in disorder. Admiral Hayes broadcast to the entire fleet. Today we proved that betrayal has consequences. Today we showed them that humanity doesn't just fight back. We win. But this is only the beginning. They wanted to exterminate us. Instead, we'll dismantle their empire piece by piece. Park listened to the Admiral's words as her bomber limped toward the carrier ship that would take her home. She thought about her brother. She thought about revenge. And she realized that revenge felt empty even in victory. Scarix Prime hung in space like a jewel, beautiful and doomed. Commander Brian Foster watched from the bridge of the UNS Valiant as the human armada surrounded the Dominion homeworld. 8 billion Scarix lived on that planet. 8 billion beings who might have had nothing to do with the decision to exterminate humanity. 8 billion lives that now depended on decisions made by people who'd lost everything. All invasion forces report ready. Lieutenant Wu's voice was flat, emotionless. He'd been that way since Obsidian Belt. General Owen is waiting for your authorization to begin planetary assault. Foster's hands trembled slightly. This was different from space combat. Different from destroying military targets. This was invasion, occupation, the kind of total war that ended civilizations. Open a channel to the Scarix government. Foster needed to try one more time. Maybe they'll surrender. The holographic display activated, showing a Scarix official in ornate robes. His scales had dulled with age, but his eyes held defiance. I am Council Leader Reshkol. You have no authority to threaten this world. I have every authority. Your military attacked our colonies without warning. You murdered 47 million people at Frontier 7 alone. Foster kept his voice level. Surrender now and face trial. Refuse, and we'll take this planet by force. Refresh Cole's throat sacks inflated. We acted in self-defense. Humanity was expanding too aggressively. You were becoming a threat. We were becoming friends. We shared technology. We traded peacefully. We trusted you. Foster felt old anger rising. You repaid trust with genocide. This war was inevitable. Better to strike first than wait for you to destroy us. The Scarix official showed no remorse. We regret nothing. Foster closed the channel. General Owen, you are authorized to commence ground operations. Rules of engagement. Minimize civilian casualties where possible, but military objectives take priority. The invasion began. Dropships fell through Scarix Prime's atmosphere like meteors. General Patricia Owen led the assault on the planetary capital, a sprawling city of crystalline towers and underground warrens. Her troops met heavy resistance immediately. Push forward. Secure the government district. Owen directed her forces from an armored command vehicle. Plasma fire lit up the streets as human soldiers engaged Scarix defenders. Medical teams set up triage stations. Wounded evacuated regardless of species. That last order surprised some of her troops. After everything the Dominion had done, Owen still insisted on treating enemy wounded. Some soldiers questioned it. Others understood. The moment humans stopped seeing their enemies as living beings was the moment they became monsters. Foster received hourly updates from the surface. The fighting was brutal. Scarix warriors fought with honor and ferocity, defending their homeworld with everything they had. Human forces advanced block by block, building by building. Then reports started coming in that changed everything. Sir, you need to see this. Captain Rodriguez appeared on Foster's screen from her infiltration ship. Behind her stood a group of human survivors, thin and hollow-eyed. We found a concentration camp 50 kilometers from the capital. 2,000 human prisoners. They've been here since before Frontier 7. Foster's blood went cold. Are they okay? Physically, mostly. Psychologically. Rodriguez shook her head. They've been subjected to experiments. The Dominion was testing biological weapons, studying human physiology to find more effective ways to kill us. News of the camp spread through the human fleet like fire. Soldiers who'd been questioning the invasion suddenly had their doubts erased. The Dominion hadn't just attacked colonies. They'd been preparing systematic extermination for years. All units. This is Admiral Hayes. The Admiral's voice carried across all channels. We've confirmed evidence of crimes against humanity. The Dominion government will be held accountable. Continue operations. The battle for Scarix Prime lasted 6 days. On the 7th, Council Leader Refresh Cole emerged from his bunker with a white flag. The Scarix military command surrendered unconditionally. Foster stood in the ruins of the government palace, watching Dominion leaders being led away in restraints. General Owen approached, her combat armor scorched and dented. We lost 800 troops taking this city. The Scarix lost 12,000 soldiers and approximately 40,000 civilians. She removed her helmet. Was it worth it? Foster didn't have an answer. Across Dominion space, the war was ending. The Lumini had withdrawn to their crystal worlds, sealing themselves away behind quantum barriers. The Hivros had fractured into civil war, different factions fighting over the scraps of their collapsed empire. The Scarix, military backbone of the Dominion, had surrendered, but victory tasted like ashes. Sir, we have a situation. Wu's voice interrupted Foster's thoughts. Some of our units are reporting unauthorized actions, executions of prisoners, refusal to treat enemy wounded. Foster closed his eyes. The war was transforming humanity, and not for the better. Soldiers who'd watched friends die were struggling to show mercy. Officers who'd lost entire families wanted revenge, not justice. Deploy military police. Anyone who violates rules of engagement gets court-martialed. I don't care what they've been through. Foster straightened. We're better than this. Are we? Wu asked quietly. Sir, we just invaded their homeworld. We've killed millions. We've destroyed their civilization. How are we different from them? It was the question Foster had been avoiding. Because they chose genocide, we chose survival. They struck first, we struck back, and now we stop. Do we? I've seen the strategic plans. There's talk of permanent occupation, of dismantling their entire society, of making sure they can never threaten us again. Wu looked at the burning city beyond the viewport. Where does it end? Foster thought about Frontier 7, about 47 million dead, about the concentration camps, about everything the Dominion had planned for humanity. Then he thought about Scarrick's children pulling themselves from rubble, about wounded soldiers who'd fought because their government told them humans were the enemy, about civilians who'd opposed the war but couldn't stop it. It ends here, Foster decided. We've won. The Dominion is broken. Their fleet is destroyed. Their government has surrendered. Now we show the galaxy that humanity knows the difference between justice and revenge. He opened a fleet-wide channel. Attention all forces, effective immediately, all offensive operations are suspended. We transition to peacekeeping and humanitarian aid. I know many of you want vengeance. I understand. But we're going to be better than them. We're going to prove that humanity can show mercy even to those who showed us none. The response was mixed. Some cheered. Others protested. But orders were orders. Admiral Hayes appeared on Foster's screen. Commander, I'm receiving reports that you've halted military operations. Care to explain? Sir, we've already won. Continuing would make us no better than them. Hayes was quiet for a long moment. You're probably right, but the Council will want guarantees. Trials, reparations, permanent demilitarization. Agreed, but no more killing. Foster stood firm. No more killing. Hayes confirmed. Rain fell on Earth for the first time in weeks, washing away the ash from orbital defense platforms that had burned during the war. Admiral Richard Hayes stood at the memorial wall, one hand pressed against the cold stone that bore his daughter's name among millions of others. 5 years had passed since Frontier 7. 5 years since the galaxy learned what humanity was capable of when pushed too far. I thought I'd find you here. Captain and Rodriguez approached, carrying 2 cups of coffee. You come here every year on this day. Hayes accepted the cup. 47 million names on this wall. How could I not? They stood in silence, watching other families trace letters with their fingers, leaving flowers, holding each other. The memorial stretched for kilometers, a permanent reminder of the cost of trust betrayed. Have you heard from Foster? Rodriguez asked. I heard he's running the humanitarian mission to the Scarrick's colonies. Last report said they're making progress. Rebuilding infrastructure, establishing local governance. Hayes smiled slightly. He's good at it, better than he ever was at fighting. The war had ended 5 years ago, but its aftermath would take generations to heal. The Dominion Alliance no longer existed. The Scarricks lived under human protectorate status, their military disbanded. Their weapons factories converted to produce medical equipment and agricultural tools. The Lumini remained isolated behind their barriers, speaking to no one. The Hivros were still fighting among themselves, though human peacekeepers were slowly bringing order. General Owen wants to know if you'll speak at the joint memorial service. Rodriguez checked her datapad. The one on Scarrick's Prime. Former enemies, honoring both sides dead. Hayes nodded. I'll be there. It's important that we remember everyone who died. Not just ours. The galaxy had changed. Humanity emerged from the war as the dominant military power, but that power came with responsibility. Other species watched nervously, wondering if humans would become conquerors. Some advocated for preemptive strikes before humanity grew too strong. Hayes had spent 5 years proving them wrong. New contact report came in this morning. Rodriguez pulled up a holographic display. Long-range sensors detected an unknown species at the edge of explored space. They're sending signals, trying to communicate. What's the protocol? We're sending the UNS Discovery. Ambassador Cole is leading the first contact team. Rodriguez hesitated. He's including Scarrick's and Lumini representatives. Want to show the galaxy that former enemies can work together. Hayes considered this. David Cole, the diplomat who'd signed the original treaty with the Dominion, had spent 5 years trying to atone for that failure. He negotiated the peace terms, established the war crimes tribunals, created the framework for reconstruction. Good. Let them see what we've learned. Hayes finished his coffee. That trust can be rebuilt, even from ashes. They walked through the memorial gardens, passing monuments to different battles. Frontier 7, Obsidian Belt, Crescent Nebula, the final assault on Scarix Prime. Each one told a story of human courage, sacrifice, and eventual mercy. Do you regret how it ended? Rodriguez asked suddenly. Some people say we should have gone further, made sure they could never threaten us again, every day. But then I think about what we would have become if we'd continued. Hayes stopped at a fountain, watching water cascade over stones carved with names. We could have exterminated them. We had the weapons, the will, the justification, but we chose something harder: mercy, responsibility. Hayes corrected. We broke their military. We toppled their government. We occupied their worlds. That made their survival our responsibility. Genocide would have been easier, but would have made us the monsters they claimed we were. A young Scarix approached hesitantly. She wore the uniform of a human university, a student of xenobiology. Excuse me, Admiral Hayes, I wanted to thank you. Hayes recognized her. Hope, they called her, a refugee he'd pulled from rubble during the invasion of Scarix Prime. She'd been 6 years old then. Thank me. For what? For stopping. For showing mercy when you didn't have to. Hope's translator carried her words clearly. My parents died in the war. The humans who found me could have left me to die. Instead, they saved me, brought me to Earth, gave me a future. Hayes felt his throat tighten. I'm sorry about your parents. They were soldiers. They fought for what they believed was right. Hope looked at the memorial wall. Like your daughter. Like everyone who died. The war was wrong. But the people who fought weren't evil. Just scared. Scared of what? Of change. Of differences. Of losing control. Hope smiled sadly. Now I study with human students. We learn together. My thesis is on cross-species cooperation. Things my grandparents would have considered impossible. She left to join a group of students, human and alien, laughing together as they headed toward class. Rodriguez watched them go. That's why we did it. That's what we fought for. Hayes nodded. Not revenge, not domination, but the chance to build something better. News came that evening. Ambassador Cole had made successful first contact with the unknown species. The delegation, including former enemies working side by side, had demonstrated the power of reconciliation. The new species was cautious but impressed. They asked about the Dominion War. Cole told them the truth. Humanity had been betrayed, had fought back with devastating efficiency, but had chosen mercy over massacre when victory was assured. He showed them the reconstruction efforts, the joint memorials, the mixed crews on peacekeeping ships. The new species agreed to diplomatic relations. Foster sent a message from Scarix colonies. Finished building the new school, Scarix and human children will attend together. First generation to grow up without war. It's a start. Dr. Singh reported from the research station. Joint team has made breakthrough in quantum technology. Scarix mathematicians and human engineers working together. We're achieving things neither species could alone. General Owen filed her annual report. All sectors stable. Human-Dominion relations improving. Recommend continued support for local governments. Peacekeeping operations successful. Lieutenant Park, now a commander, led the Veterans Rehabilitation Program. Helping soldiers from both sides cope with trauma. War crimes trials concluded. Justice served. Now we heal. Hayes stood on the observation deck of the orbital station above Earth, looking out at the stars. Humanity's fleets patrolled known space, not as conquerors but as guardians. The weapons that had devastated the Dominion were still ready, still maintained, a reminder of what humanity could do if threatened. But they remained holstered. Computer, record message from my daughter's memorial file. Hayes began. It's been 5 years. We won the war you died in. We broke the Dominion. We showed them the price of betrayal. He paused. But more importantly, we showed ourselves that we could stop, that we could be more than weapons, that we could build instead of destroy. He looked at Earth below, peaceful and beautiful. The galaxy knows now what humanity is capable of, both the darkness and the light. They fear us, they respect us, and slowly, they're learning to trust us again. Hay smiled. We carry your memory forward, not through revenge, but through the better world we're building. The message ended. Outside, human ships patrolled alongside former enemies. The war was over. The peace had just begun.